Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. When people talk about the fundamental freedoms enshrined in the American Constitution, this is what they're talking about, the First Amendment. And it's the reason why so many American Muslims have been talking to me about the American Constitution, because in it they are free to practice their religion as Muslims, and they are free to speak their mind, unlike so many Muslims in Muslim countries around the world. And if anybody tries to oppress them in this country, they can seek justice from the American government. The fundamental freedoms guaranteed under Islamic law are not far from these American ideals. And that's amazing when you realize the Quran predates the Constitution by 1,000 years. And there's evidence in Washington that suggests America knows it's indebted to Islam for its own citizens' inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the Supreme Court in Washington. Now, we can't get into film because they're actually in session. But what I wanted to show you is a frieze which is in the room where the Chief Justices actually sit and dispense justice. This frieze pays homage to the ideas and principles that have inspired the American legal system. And one of the foundation documents represented in this frieze is the Quran. And in the nation's capital, there are a few other references to Islam, largely unknown, rarely seen. The Thomas Jefferson building contains the Library of Congress, the oldest cultural institution in Washington, which was completed in the 19th century. Around the dome of the reading room is a mural meant to represent the nations and ideas that contributed most to American civilization. And it might come as a surprise to historians that amongst the ideas represented here is Islam. Beneath this great mural, I'm meeting Congressman Keith Ellison, who I came across at the start of my journey in Minneapolis. So Keith, tell me about when you took your oath of office, because it was on a copy of the Quran and not just any copy.
Well, in fact, it was on this Quran that we have right here before us. And, you know, in fact, this Quran, which is a 2-volume set, has the initials TJ inscribed right here. Thomas Jefferson. And so, you know, we said this is...
What was your reaction when you found out that one of the founding fathers had his own copy of the Quran?
Rocky, I was gobsmacked.
As we'd say in Britain.
As you'd say in Britain.
It was huge. It was international.
I didn't have much appreciation for why it would be a big deal that a Muslim would be elected to the United States Congress. I thought the issue was going to be color. And I thought, wow, we've really made some great strides in terms of racial justice when people don't care that I'm black anymore. They just want to talk about religion.
But do you think, Keith, that for all the grassroots activism in the Muslim community, that at a national level, the fact is that most Americans are still afraid of Islam?
Americans, I think, are subject to fear, just like any people in the world. But I think there's this deeply rooted tolerance in people, and we've been through a momentous civil rights movement. We've been through all kinds of social change movements, all marching the country toward a greater level of equality. And I think people are just not ready to try to cut anybody out of the deal. But the fact is, in the European context, what it means to be a Brit or a Norwegian is fairly tightly defined.
They wouldn't look like you and me on
right,
the roll.
And what it means to be of that nation you're a certain color, a certain culture, a certain faith.
Yes.
But in America, we're coming all cultures, all colors, our faiths. Even the most conservative American does not question my authenticity as an American. Now, we impose social hierarchies and economic hierarchies. We're not saying we have social justice heaven here. We don't. But the fact is, we don't question our authenticity as Americans.
On this journey, I've met Muslims who've made me rethink my prejudices about America. Muslims here realize something the rest of the world and possibly other Americans have forgotten. This country was born out of a revolutionary moment. Settlers first came here fleeing religious persecution. They overthrew a colonial monarchy. They based their constitution on the ideals of the French Revolution and radical thinkers like Tom Paine, John Locke, and yes, the Prophet Muhammad.